You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
Hey Ramblers! Today's episode is brought to you by Fangoria. Since 1979, Fangoria has been the authority in the world of contemporary horror. As the only sanctuary for horror aficionados in its early days, it has now grown into an empire that expands beyond its celebrated magazine. From t-shirts, coffee mugs, beanies, enamel pins, there's something for every horror fanatic in your world, even if it's you. So head on over to shop.fangoria.com/pencil and paper productions or use code pencil and paper productions at checkout to get 20% off your first order or magazine subscription. Yes, it is a mouthful, which is why there are links in the show notes down below. That's shop.fangoria.com/pencil and paper productions or code pencil and paper productions at checkout for 20% off. Fangoria, first in fright since 1979.
Buy it or we'll tear your soul apart.
You're listening to the Horror Ramblings podcast, the show about all things horror. We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the Horror Ramblings podcast, the show about all things horror. Your ears are not deceiving you. We are back this week. We had a little bit of an issue last week, and unfortunately we didn't get to grace the airwaves, or whatever you want to call it, the stream waves these days, because it's not exactly the same as radio. So, I mean, I don't know. You know, you guys like to hear me talk like I'm a maniac and all over the place, and well, here I am. And honestly, after talking about horror with my wife last episode and her just destroying things because she just doesn't like horror movies all that much, you know, it's nice to be back, and it's nice to have my voice back. So that's a whole other story, but we won't get into all of that. How you doing today, Stephen? How are you this morning?
Doing all right. I can't complain. Topic for today is worth chatting about, a little excited about. You know, some people might be a little like, what? But hey, that's what these movies are there for. So,
well, you know, people watch horror movies, I think, for two reasons mainly: for the violence and the nudity. So, I mean, before we jump into the subject of the show, I don't know if you have any news. I have a couple things that I kind of want to bring up. They're not really horror related, but I kind of want to bring them up on the show just sort of as a shout out, if that's okay.
Yeah,
first off, a big part of my childhood kind of just fell apart. Yesterday was when I found out that Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball Z, you know, one of the most popular animes in all of the world, he unfortunately passed away. Was a young guy too, only 68. Which was kind of a bummer. I remember watching that show when I was a kid. I've even, you know, I've read it on paper. I've played the video games. I've had some association with it my whole life. And yeah, that one kind of stung a little more than I thought it would. And I wanted to shout him out because he inspired so many other people to create a lot of the animes that we have today. And there was a huge outpour of love to him. And I'm glad that people are showing a lot of love,
right,
about him and his legacy and everything. And I know he had a few projects that he had been working on that he was really excited about. I hope that they were done enough to where they can maybe complete them and put them out there for him. But no, I wanted to give him a shout out because, man, it hit me. I don't normally get like, oh my lord, about, you know, famous people typically when they pass. Like, yeah, it sucks, but there's some of them that just they hit you on a personal level. You know, like Robin Williams was one for me. This was one for me. Lord forbid when Robert Englund passes. But no, I wanted to just, like I said, give him a shout out. It's not horror related, but there's a lot of people that like anime. There's a lot of good horror animes out there.
Sure, yeah.
Dragon Ball Z was not a horror anime. It was more of an action anime, but still, my thoughts are with his family, and definitely gone too soon. So, and then on a completely random note, did you see that Mike Tyson is fighting one of the Paul brothers from YouTube, Mr. Man?
I did.
Who thinks he's all that?
And while some people were pointing out Mike Tyson's age, the fact that he has been walking around with a cane as of late, or whatever reasons they want to try to shame the man. And then, look, I know he's not the greatest person in the world either, but I want so bad for him to clock Jake Paul within the first 30 seconds and knock him the fuck out.
Yeah, the moment I found out that they were fighting, that was my thought exactly. I just thought, I hope Mike Tyson fucks him up. Yeah. And I've been seeing training videos of Tyson, and say what you will about him. Yes, he's in his late 50s, but I don't think I would want to be going up against him in any regard. If you watch the videos, they are training him like there's no tomorrow. They are putting him through the ringer. They are doing everything they can to keep him where he needs to be. And I know it was like last year before, he fought another boxer who's really well known, and they went quite a few rounds. And from what my understanding is, this other boxer that he fought is a lot more skilled than Jake Paul, and their fight ended in a draw. But I don't know if you've seen any of the videos, but I mean, you see them sparring and punching the leather gloves that their coaches have on, and that you see Jake Paul, and I'm not going to say that he's not that he's not an okay fighter, because he seems like he's pretty good. But you hear the sound from when he hits that leather, and it's it's intimidating a little bit. But then you hear Tyson, you just hear that whack.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's yeah. I don't understand. Jake Paul's like 27. He's a young guy. And he's thinking, oh, well, if I can knock out a 57-year-old man who will be 58, I believe, by the time the fight happens. If I can knock out a 58-year-old man at 27, well, I'm the best. I'm the best there ever was. Yeah.
I can't see Mike Tyson not wanting to beat the piss out of him. Not just for the sake of it being Jake Paul. I don't know what his feelings are on him. But he's Jake Paul. Are you really going to let him be the person that shames you into a loss?
Right.
God forbid it was an actual trained heavyweight champ that took your title or made you lose a round or a match or an entire bout. But Jake Paul, no. He is going to turn that Iron Mike shit back on, and he is not going to lose to just be like, well, I'm old. Fuck that. This is Jake Paul. Yeah. You're not going to lose. And swear to God, he better not.
I thought it was always funny. Tyson always he adored Muhammad Ali. He adored him, and they always asked if Ali was in his prime and he fought Tyson in his prime. They always asked him who did he think would win, and he would say that he always thought that Tyson would win, and Tyson was like, "There's no way." And Muhammad Ali, he put it perfect. He said, I might have been faster than you in my prime, but if you'd have got a couple good hits on me, it'd have been over. There's only one boxer that I know of that hits harder than Mike Tyson, and it always makes me laugh thinking about how strong this man is, because I associate him with something else, but it's George Foreman. You want to talk about a boxer that was insanely powerful. George Foreman. Tyson was intimidated by him. I watched an interview where he talked about that. He said there's pictures of him carrying cows on his shoulder. Like he's got a full-grown cow on his shoulders. He's picking up this cow and he's moving this cow. I don't think I'd want to fight any of these guys. And I love when people who I don't really care for get what they deserve. I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm not a fan.
No.
Of Jake Paul. I'm not a fan of Logan Paul. Like originally when they started out, yeah, they made some funny videos, but then they got really cocky and they kind of just became jerks, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And yeah, I can't wait for him to get fucked up, because he is going to get fucked up and it's going to be great. And I know neither one of these things I brought up this morning are horror related, but I had to put that out into the universe. I had to give my opinion on it. So
No,
sorry.
I'm with you 100%. All I want to see is Iron Mike get in there and just punch. And then I just see his body go down like he used to do.
Maybe that's who they should have had in Resurrection instead of Busta Rhymes kung fu fighting Michael Myers. Maybe Mike Tyson shows up. I think even Michael would be like, nope.
You look at him and be like, come on, you want to fight me? Come on, Mike. What's he gonna do over there? He ain't gonna fight me. Come on.
I could just see Michael Myers trying to run off and him like,
It's ludicrous.
Oh Lord. Oh Jesus. Did you see they've already started talking about their plan to, this is a great segue by the way, to remake Halloween. Now that a new studio has picked it up, they're going all the way back to the beginning. They're retelling the story from the very beginning, and apparently they're going to they're going to mix movies with a TV show. And I know this might sound sacrilegious, but let it die for a while. Just if you're gonna tell Michael Myers stories or tell Halloween stories, give us something else. Give us Season of the Witch. Maybe get into the occult things. I've said this before. I think it would be great if they did a time jump and they did like the cult of Michael Myers or something, where there's a bunch of people that were obsessed and they want to bring Michael back, and they have to kill so many people on Halloween night, and then they have to off a pregnant lady, cut the baby out of her belly, and the baby will be the resurrection of Michael Myers. Like, give me something just batshit crazy off the wall instead of just telling the same old story again and again. It's just, and I like Michael Myers, but I feel like they're driving this slasher into the ground. I mean, we have the original franchise still. We have the Blumhouse trilogy that they did. Like, we have those that we can enjoy, but please stop. Just give me something new.
I think what it comes down to is that, as we've kind of mentioned before, you have multiple timelines with the franchise. You have multiple iterations of the franchise now. So we have a lot of Michael Myers, and we really haven't had a break from Michael Myers over the 40 years that it's been. So yeah, I think we need to kind of pump the brakes on it, maybe let it rest for a bit, and like you said, come up with something unique and fresh for the idea, because that's what I'll agree. People can argue with me about it all day long with the David Gordon Green stuff. At least it tried to do something different. Yeah. That's where I'll give it credit. At least it was trying to do something wholly unique with what we had. Whether it landed for you or not, that's up to you. I'm not going to judge or shame anybody for it, but yeah, it needs to just be put on the back burner for a little while. Let people miss him. Like, I'm more excited for the prospect of a Friday the 13th film or a Nightmare on Elm Street film now, because it's been so long since we've had a legit entry in either of those franchises, regardless of the remakes or not. We've just not had them. So there's a drought for those characters. Let's see about bringing them back and doing something like that.
You know what I would love to see, speaking of franchises that have sort of gone away for a while? That newer Hellraiser film that came out, I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. I did. And I know we've talked about it on the show, and, we had our things about it that we liked and that we didn't like about it. But seeing that Doug Bradley had some interest in possibly coming back as an older Pinhead, I would love to see that. But I feel like that would be interesting to see from... I remember at the end of the films, they all got turned back into regular people. Mm-hmm. In one of the films at the end. It would be interesting to see maybe a Pinhead in an asylum, like the human form of him in an asylum somewhere. Or, just something where he's broken and he's maybe forgotten who he was. That he was the Hell Priest himself, and watch him be drawn to it, almost like the box is calling him back because it needs him, mm-hmm. and him becoming Pinhead all over again. I think that would be kind of an interesting concept. I don't know how exactly they would execute it, but that literally just came to my mind.
I mean, can see what you mean.
I don't know. It would be different. It would be new, and I miss I really enjoyed the newer Hellraiser. I did, but just seeing Doug Bradley as Pinhead again, something about that would be magical to me.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, that honestly, out of all of the series and the slasher films and everything, to me, the one that is doing the best at just progressing and still telling a story is Chucky.
Sure, yeah.
Chucky's still doing great. And the thing that I like about Chucky the most is sometimes you're watching it and it is satire. It really is. But it works. And it works because Chucky's just one of those characters that I feel he doesn't take himself too serious.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes him scary too, because he's having fun with killing people. And it's like I said on the one show, he's sort of like the Deadpool of the slashers.
Sure.
Like, he doesn't take it too serious, but he's really fucking dangerous.
And I think the fact that they even leaned into the ridiculousness at some point, like they knew it was getting to that point, and they said, you know what, let's veer over into that lane for a minute and just kind of go balls to the wall, do some crazy shit. Because I even remember when I heard the plot idea, and I think I heard it on the commentary for Bride of Chucky, Don Mancini was like, I want the follow-up, which would eventually be Seed of Chucky, to be kind of like the old Sylvester cartoons where he'd take his son out to go kill a mouse, and his son's like, oh no, I can never, oh, for shame. And he said that was kind of the impetus of the concept. It was like, yeah, I want to do that because that would be kind of fun. That would be silly. And
yeah,
they kind of did that pretty much in a manner of speaking, but kind of put their own little spin on it. But they did that, and then they corrected back into more horror, but they never lost sight of where they were. It was like, we're still following this thread. We're just going to lean back into the horror element. And now we kind of weave between both, where he's horrific, he does terrible shit. There's a real horror element back in it, but then you can still play with the funnier, crazier satire.
And it contributes to the character overall, because it's, like you said, it's a Looney Tunes cartoon that's come to life in a horrific way. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't lose any of those elements. The only other character that's really done that well, and say what you will about it, but Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, yes, it's clearly not the best Freddy movie, but it is fun to watch because Freddy has gotten kind of goofy in it. Hmm. But then you get Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and I know that's a different Freddy. It's a very different Freddy. But any other film, would still have that association with the other one. You would still sort of have an association with the goofy stuff, and it would maybe take away, but not with certain characters. Just like, if Wes Craven's New Nightmare never would have existed, and I'll say this now, if New Nightmare never would have existed, and we would have gone from Freddy's Dead to Freddy versus Jason, I still don't think that people would have an issue finding Freddy scary, because you kind of expect that unpredictable behavior. Even in the original movie, when, he's messing with Tina, he's attacking her, and she rips his face off, and he laughs about it, and he just keeps doing what he's doing. Is it kind of goofy? Yeah. But is it also horrifying because you're like, this guy's having fun with this because he knows they can't stop him? Like, that's my whole thing with it. It's like, that's, it doesn't work for certain characters, Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. Every slasher has some funny moments that make me laugh. It's in Jason Takes Manhattan. It's probably got one of my favorite scenes of any of the Jason films, and it's when he breaks those guys' boombox and they they pull the knives on him and everything, and he just turns and he lifts his mask, which is not that is not something you expect from Jason. No. But to see him lift his mask and they're just like, oh, we're good, we're cool.
Like
come on.
Clearly would have liked to have seen something along the lines of him picking that stereo up that he kicked over and like chucking it at one of the dude's heads, and whatever the gory thing that would have elicited, they would have been like, holy shit, and then taken off. That would have been more Jason. But yeah, I'm sure they were on a budget and they were in Times Square and they were just like, we gotta go. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, but you missed an opportunity.
Yeah, and I mean, but in doing that, it kind of creates a like, what the fuck just happened moment, and you're thrown off by it, but not necessarily in a bad way.
No. Yeah.
So, it's just It's one of them things. I'm here. I am going off about random things. You have any news? You have anything that you kind of saw that you'd like to talk about? I know we might bring up Imaginary, and I'm still fuming over that a little bit.
I mean, we can touch on that briefly because it did come out, and I would love to hear from any ramblers who may have gone out and seen it because I did not hear good things about the film, and that was such a disappointment because I was hoping for a solid film. But from the review that I read, and again, I know we say don't necessarily go by reviews because they don't necessarily paint the proper picture. You know, you could still enjoy a thing, and we still might. But the way they kind of described it is it was just kind of treading water until the third act. And getting there is just a slog. Even for a 90-minute movie, you have to slog through an hour just to get to the last half or the last third, and that's when it picks up. I don't want to do that, you know.
I heard the build-up wasn't worth the reward.
Yeah.
And a lot of the reviews that I've seen have said basically that you'll go in, you might enjoy aspects of it, but it's very forgettable. And that kills me. But I guess the director that they have for this film, he's directed a few other films for Blumhouse, and I guess the other films that he's directed as well. And this is no offense to him, you know, you direct what you get.
Yeah.
But I guess the other films that he's directed for Blumhouse have also not done very well. I think one of them was Truth or Dare,
and Fantasy Island was the other one.
Fantasy Island, yeah.
Yeah.
And neither one of those did all that well. So
yeah, when I did that deep dive too, because I knew I recognized his name, but I didn't know from what. And then when I started seeing what popped up, I was like, oh, okay. Then that might add some stuff.
And it kills me because everyone said the same thing. The concept that they bring into this film is great. The concept is wonderful, but the overall execution is just lacking.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know. It's just one of those things where I was really hoping this would you know really hit a home run somewhere. And you know, maybe it's something that they can revisit, tell in a different way. You know, they remake movies like There's No Tomorrow, so I mean, a month from now they might announce that they're remaking it.
No, that's true.
You know, it's just one of those things. You know, I expected this film to be a little bit better than what I've been hearing.
Sure.
Like with Night Swim, you know, I heard I wasn't expecting much from it, but I heard that it's actually an okay movie. So like that's more of a review that I would you know expect. Like it's not the best movie, but it's a little bit better than what we thought it was going to be. So yeah, I'm just
yeah, but that's what we expect. It's a gamble with horror, I suppose. But outside of that, I also had a little bit of sad news, and a lot of people might not know who he is by name, but I guarantee you I can point to something and you'll be like, oh yeah. Actor by the name of Mark Dodson passed away this week as well. He would be best known for doing voice work. He did a lot of the Gremlins in the Gremlins movies, but if you wanted a specific character that he voiced that I can point to and you'd be like, oh yeah. Return of the Jedi, Salacious Crumb, which was Jabba the Hutt's little minion that goes, oh, ha, 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 ha. That was him.
wow.
And he did a lot of other stuff, like he did voices for one of the Ewoks movies, Darkwing Duck, a bunch of other stuff, Killing Floor, video games. So it's sad that 60 is starting to become a number again that we're starting to see people pass from. Because it seems to be pretty common in the last couple of months, I've noticed.
Yeah. I was going to ask you how old he was.
Yeah, 64, so it's a shame.
Insane.
But outside of that, have you heard of a movie, and I think we may have mentioned something about this before when the craze of Disney horror started popping up. Vampire. This is a Bambi horror movie where I'm guessing he's a vampire. I would have been like, yeah, whatever the fuck, you know, I don't care. But there's one detail that's got me a little intrigued, just a tad. Now, this is also not the same as, I think there was the Bambi Reckoning movie that's coming out that's part of the Blood and Honey universe or whatever. So this is separate from that. But Vampire is being described as Evil Dead 2, it's already a good start, meets Who Framed Roger Rabbit. There's where you caught my attention.
Okay, I could get behind that.
So are we saying that maybe the vampire is animated, maybe? Now, again, they didn't say that, but is that what we're implying here? If you're using that as your basis of combination, that's what I would kind of think.
So vampire cartoon deer attacking real people.
Perhaps. That is what I'm under the impression this is going to be.
Now that would be interesting to see.
Yeah. I'm kind of intrigued. I kind of want this to be good.
It kind of just makes you think, or maybe it's just me and the way my mind works. What would happen if the Necronomicon existed in the Who Framed Roger Rabbit world, and one of the toons read it?
But which one?
Yeah. God, Mickey! Could you imagine? I'm just imagining Mickey in my head saying, "Mommy's up here with the maggots.
Mommy's up here with the maggots now." Ho ho ho.
Or that would be awesome if they're doing it like that, like animated like that. If they do it right, that could be a unique idea that we've not seen before. I could get behind that.
Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna keep my eyes on this one. So Vampire, not Bambi the Reckoning, but Vampire. So there's two different ones.
They should probably also do the I don't know if you remember on SNL, they had a skit where The Rock played Bambi and he was getting revenge on everybody that killed his mom. We just need a feature-length film of that.
Sure. Good news for you and me. You know, I think I would invest in this. Scream Factory has announced it on May 14th, 2024, a 4K release of Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Getting the love, getting a whole lot of, actually like a little, I don't want to say a box set, but a set collector's edition that's got, the steel book thing. It's got a bunch of little cards and stills and whatnot. So it's got its own little bundle, slip covers, prism stickers, lobby cards, etc., etc. So if that is your bag.
I know the guys that did Killer Clowns from Outer Space, they've seen the love that it's been getting recently, and they said that they would love to continue telling the story, but they don't know if they would do a movie. They said it would be fun to do a series of it. So I could see like a limited run series where it could be, 40 or 40-minute episodes, maybe an hour long, and just tell a story over a period of time. I could get behind that because I feel like, these clowns in the movie, they had their leader and everything, and they all got killed and everything, but it makes you wonder if there's even worse clowns out there.
Sure.
So
now the Kyoto brothers, I think they're actually doing press with the video game, because I think they were involved. I don't know to what extent they were involved with the making of the video game that came out, or has it come out? I don't think it's come out.
I don't know if it's out yet. Yeah. Not yet, but it's close.
But I know that they're on press doing and chatting about it, so hopefully they'll see the love that it's getting, and maybe they'll come up with something, because I'd love to see what they could do today with those designs and the puppetry and everything that they did, the suits and whatnot, because they're talented dudes, so I'd love to see how I'm sure they're still working, but I would love to see what they could do with that stuff today. That's what I mean.
That would be really awesome to see.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say on a random note, because for some reason I got to thinking about it, us talking about video games. I don't know if you keep up with Dead by Daylight at all. They've introduced a new killer and a new survivor, and this new killer is called the Unknown. Do yourself a favor when you get the chance and just watch a video of the character, like in the loading screen. I know they're doing a Dead by Daylight movie, and I hope and I pray that this character is in it, because he's something else. And just a random little nod to that, but yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah.
So on a random note.
Also in summertime, and I know we've been looking forward to hearing some news about this, and we finally got a date. July 5th, we'll see the release of Maxine in theaters, which is a follow-up to X and Pearl. I guess would technically, because Pearl and then X and it did. So yeah, that's coming out July 5th. Hopefully we'll get a trailer this week. I don't know that for certain, but usually when we start to get details like this, other things are soon to follow. It's got a hell of a cast. Have you seen this cast?
No, I don't think I have.
I didn't realize who was going to be in this movie, but let me read off some names here.
Okay.
Halsey, which I'm going to save the bigger ones for last, let me tell you. Elizabeth Debicki, whose name I know, but I think I'm going to have to actually look her up to know who she is, because I know I've heard that name. And yes, I have seen her in... Oh, she was in Oh, yeah. She was the gold woman in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay.
Okay. The head of... I can't remember the name of the group, the people. Michelle Monaghan, Bobby Cannavale, Lily Collins. Now here's where we're getting to the good stuff. Giancarlo Esposito, which is always a sight to see, and Kevin Bacon.
Kevin Bacon?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I am intrigued. I'm excited.
That is a solid cast.
Mm-hmm. Also, along with Mia Goth, she is also back as our title character, Maxine. But yeah, July 5th, looking forward to hearing hopefully good things about it. I mean, the director's already said that he thinks this is his favorite script out of the three. So I'm excited. There was a new trailer for Late Night with the Devil. Did you happen to catch that one? It's a full trailer.
I caught the tail end of the trailer. I've been really bad about watching trailers lately, but I've been seeing a lot of clips of it, and it's looking good.
I think that's going to have to be one we talk about when it drops, because I'm really looking forward to it. It's looking solid. So hopefully we won't hear anything negative.
And Mr. Polka Dot Man, I don't see him as Mr. Polka Dot Man in this, which makes me happy.
Yeah, he's really coming into his own. I'm glad that he's getting a lot more work, because I'm starting to see him pop up a lot.
And it seems like he's been, and I know we've mentioned this before, he's been in a lot of horror movies.
Yeah.
And he's really good at it. He really fits the mold, I think.
No, I'm not going to talk about that. Fuck that. Stupid ass shit that people come up with. You have no idea the amount of stupid fucking... Well, I say stupid. I'm not going to knock them, because people might like, oh, you talk about this, the greatest stupid... It just sounds stupid to me. How about Barbara Crampton showed up in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game? What the hell? Talk about an actress that was never associated with it, but yet they've created a character as a victim in the game.
Why?
I don't know. I was a little... It's just like, all right. I'm not knocking it. It's bizarre, because again, she has no connections to the franchise that I'm aware. But here we are.
Sigourney Weaver is in the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre game as Ripley.
And you're like, what? But anyway,
that movie would go very different.
Yeah. And I don't think this is a big surprise, but this is the Japanese Academy Awards. Godzilla Minus One won Best Picture, and along with 7 other wins, which, let me see if I can find those easily. Yes. Best Picture, Best Screenplay, Best Supporting Actress, Best Cinematography, Best Lighting, Best Art Direction, Best Sound, Best Editing. So that's just in Japan, but I feel like they don't view the character the way he is viewed here. Or at least by... The majority of people in Japan recognize the character. They don't see him as a joke. You know, he is a status symbol in the culture over there. Like, I have seen street lights, you know, the stop and go, where it's a little guy and it's stop, and then the go is a little Godzilla. Like, that's how important he is to the culture there. So I'm not surprised by that. Here, I think maybe, visual effects at most, it might win. But I'm not going to hold my breath, because I know how the Academy Awards are here. Yeah. I know you're excited about this, and I sent this to you. Welcome to Prime Time, which is a new book that actually explores the Freddy's Nightmares television series coming out on April 1st. I'm kind of intrigued by this, because it's a breakdown of all the episodes. They apparently interviewed the creators of the show and just kind of did like a deep dive into this series through each episode, and I don't know, no one talks about it all that much, and like we've mentioned before, it's a little hard to find. I think you can find it on Tubi now, and I think you said Screenbox at one point. It
was on Screenbox. I'm not sure if it's still on Tubi. I'd have to I'd have to check. I know it really is a bitch to find. Maybe with the book coming out, maybe they'll give it the 4K treatment, or even just if they put it in high def and put it out there.
Yeah, it does.
Robert Englund doesn't even really talk about it like that much. Like, people don't ask about it in interviews very often. I've watched him talk about it a few times, and from what my understanding was, they were really loose with Freddy's Nightmares. It was just like, let's try this, let's do this, let's try this in this episode, and there was a lot of experimenting going on with things, and there's some things in it that I think you could see as more extreme than in the movies to a degree.
Sure.
Even the first episode, the cop who was like one of the people responsible for killing Freddy, he was like the main person responsible. He's like in a dentist chair, and Freddy has a glove with like drill bits and stuff on it, and he's drilling, and like they don't show all of it, but you see like blood and stuff pouring out of the guy's mouth and like teeth, and it's brutal.
Mm-hmm. And
it was only 2 seasons, if I remember right.
I believe that's right.
And it, like I said, it's really hard to find. I have a DVD here of it. It's not the whole series. It's just a few episodes. And then these guys were selling copies on Etsy at one point. A friend of mine posted it up about it. They were actually restoring the episodes themselves and selling it. So I don't know exactly how that all went for them, but it's one of those series that if I found out that it was being remastered and everything, I would probably pre-order it, because I think it's kind of slept on. Is it campy sometimes? Yes. Is it the best thing that you'll ever watch? Probably not. But if you are a Freddy fan, you will absolutely love it. And I honestly feel like it is one of the things that helped to make Freddy a part of pop culture, because when you see like GIFs, when you're sending them over on your phone, if you type in Freddy, one of the real popular ones is him with sunglasses on, and he's got a guitar, and he's like jumping with the guitar. Mm-hmm. The really popular image was never in any of the movies. It's in that. And they used to open the show with Freddy talking. Freddy would be doing something, he would talk to the audience, and then they'd do the episode, and then he would come back on and talk. It was almost like Tales from the Crypt, but with Freddy.
Sure. And
Freddy was telling the stories about things that he did. And it was definitely something interesting. I wish we would have got a little more of it. But I mean, 2 seasons, and the episodes are solid, even when they're kind of cheesy. And I mean, I think one of the last episodes of it was like a goth girl or an emo girl or whatever. She was obsessed with Freddy, and she wanted him to take her to prom. Yeah. And you like, after seeing the movies, you would never think that somebody would want that, but another thing they just kind of brought in. So yeah, I'm excited that they're finally releasing some things to talk about it, because I'm sure that will raise interest in it, and maybe get the right people pushing to put it back out there and perfect it.
Sure. But outside of that, I think I have exhausted all my options in the news space this week. Nothing else is really catching my eye. Double check in. Oh, big surprise! Blood and Honey swept the Razzie Awards. Who would have thunk?
Oh man, I honestly, I've not watched the first one. I've not. I'll be honest. I haven't watched it. I've seen parts of it. I feel like I've watched the whole movie because of all the parts that I've seen of it. I'm still looking forward to this sequel. I know that sounds weird. I don't know. I think it'll at least be something that you'll watch it and you'll go, what the hell were they thinking? But you'll also appreciate that somebody tried to take something outside something that you would never see as threatening. And it makes it even funnier because my youngest daughter's obsession right now is Winnie the Pooh. So we've been watching Winnie the Pooh at home, and it just makes me, I hear Pooh singing his little songs, and, I mean, hell, he was singing a song the other day about, I'm rather fat, but I'm okay with that. Because, he's Winnie the Pooh. He's a happy little bear. And you see all these characters, and you're just like, I don't know. Seeing them turn into that is going to be even better for me because we've been watching it. And I don't know. I watched Winnie the Pooh when I was a kid, so it just, I don't know. Seeing him become a horror character is just, it's twisted and it's entertaining to me. But I'm also the guy that the other day when we were watching it, Craig Ferguson was the voice of Al in one of the movies that they did. And I'm just waiting to hear Al say fuck or, you know, something inappropriate or make fun of, you know, German people like he does when he does his stand-up. I'm just waiting to hear Al say that. You know, it's...
Yeah.
That's just the way my brain works.
No, I get it. But no, that's all I got. So what do you say we talk about some blood, beasts, and boobies?
I am good with the booby talk.
Yeah, right.
We are talking about some really popular nude scenes in horror films. I've got a list. I do have some personal favorites that probably aren't on the list.
Now, I do want to preface this for some people. This is not meant to be exploitative, okay? I don't want people to think we're being misogynists or anything like that. I feel like maybe it would have been better to possibly have a woman's perspective, and we still could. We could bring on some female guests and get their opinions on their favorite nudity. I'm sure we can. I don't want it to seem one-sided. I don't want people to think we're just exploiting women for the sake of yada yada. But to be fair, most of it is female, and we in the horror community are understand, like we kind of come to expect it. You know, it is part of what it is. But we're not just sitting there thinking. It's not about exploiting that person. If we don't see nudity, we're not upset. We're not going to be like, damn that stupid actress, and why didn't she show her tits? And we understand. You know, it's not going to be. But sometimes you get some good scenes, and sometimes you get some stuff, and I'm not a prude about it. You know. Yeah, and you know, just for me, a lot of the things we're going to be talking about today they were scenes in films that, as growing up. Some of these were the first time I had ever seen nudity. Sure.
And it's not, like you said, it's not us, you know, being like, oh yeah, we're just going to talk about sexy women all day. Like it's not that. You know, there is an issue with sexism in films. There is a lot of misrepresentation on how women are in films. You know, a lot of films make women out to be the victims, but I guess this is just our way of talking about scenes that we appreciated, not just because of the fact that there was a naked woman in it, but because maybe it took us by surprise. Maybe it shocked us. At the end of the day, I just want to say, if anything, we are complimenting some of the performances, because there are a lot of horror movies that are strictly just nudity, and that's it. But no, I get what you're trying to say, and as far as I'm concerned, if anybody thinks that we're being dickheads about anything, let's have some women come on the show and they can talk about the best wieners they've seen in horror films. I don't care.
You know what? I'll even throw in a wiener if I find one that I remember or something. I'll throw it in just for you, just to be like, hey, here's a wiener, and it was a great wiener for whatever it was.
I have a wiener scene that I'm thinking of right now.
See, there we go. See,
but it didn't end well, and it was in Terrifier 2.
Yeah, okay.
yeah. Because that's normally when you see a wiener in a horror film. You normally see a wiener in a horror film when it's getting cut off or something bad's happening to it. So what the hell's the deal with that?
That is true.
Do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
I can start, because my first one that I wanted to bring up does have a history. And it's the history that you mentioned, the first, as it were. This might not be the first nude woman that I ever saw. I could be wrong, but she's the first one I remember, and for good reason, I think. I want to talk about Debbie Sue Voorhees from Friday the 13th, Part 5. Because holy shit did I have the biggest crush on her. And you could say it's probably because of her nice, her nice bazongas.
Attributes.
Yes, that's probably a better term. But I think it's a lot more than that. I mean, that's just icing on the cake for me because I think she was gorgeous. You know, just a sight to behold as a young boy. And I think she's actually probably one of the reasons I probably lean a little bit more toward darker haired women as well, because I do have I don't know, there's just something about a brunette just drives me up the wall. But anyway, yeah, she Friday the 13th Part 5 was probably one of the first horror films that I remember watching. Again, can't say that it was the first, but it's the one I remember watching first and probably the most. So I got to see that scene over and over and over. And there's a song, I don't know if you've ever heard it, and I would love to hear if our audience has heard it. And if you haven't, I'll post up a link for it somewhere. But there's a song from, it's called A New Beginning. And the artist goes under the name of Wolfie's Just Fine, but he's actually a comedian and singer. And he sings about this scene out of the movie. And the song he sings, it's about the scene where the killing actually happens and how that was for him as a child watching this gorgeous woman. Like, it was almost like a sexual awakening for this young boy. You know what I mean? Like his first time getting to have these feelings because he sees this beautiful woman. He sees her undressing, the sex scene, and he's just like, oh my God, she's gorgeous. And then suddenly Jason shows up and like cuts her eyes out. So you're like, oh shit. Or excuse me, I'm sorry, Roy shows up. It wasn't Jason, but you get the idea. But I related that song just as much because I kind of felt like I was that kid, you know. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that. That was like probably a sexual awakening for me as well, and in some cases. And yeah, I agreed with, or I related with that song, and I highly recommend checking that guy out. I think his name, I never know how to say his last name. It's something like Lajoie, maybe John Lajoie. It's Lajoie, and it's pronounced some. He's Canadian, so we'll forgive him. I'm kidding. You know I am. Anyway, but no, he's written a lot of awesome songs, and that's one of my favorites that he did for a lot of reasons. But no, Debbie Sue, I mean, I still think she's still a smoke show today. But you know, different strokes for different folks. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, she's probably one of my top scenes that I would always go back to and just be like, that one. Yeah. 100%.
And I'll be honest, one of the first, because in not Friday the 13th, in Nightmare on Elm Street, the nudity was like very brief. It was quick. For me, and how do I put this? I feel like during the time period for all of the Friday the 13th films, women were just built differently. Women and men, everybody was built differently. And I actually have one from Friday the 13th, the final chapter.
Okay.
And it's Judy and I'm Aronson.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think she was one of the first that I had seen in a horror movie because I kind of watched the Friday the 13th films in a weird order. I think it was just, you know, wherever I could get them. I remember rewinding that part quite a few times, yeah. Just because she was built very nice.
Oh yeah.
Even more so, you know, even in the newer Friday the 13th, as weird as it sounds, I don't think the women are as pretty. At least, I don't find them as appealing to my taste.
Sure, I get that.
And I think it's just because of 80s women. I don't know what it is about 80s women. But yeah, she was one of the first. And then I think the second horror film that I watched that I really saw some nudity in was Halloween. And I can't think of her name.
Talking about the blonde?
The one who Michael is he's got the sheet over him.
Yeah.
And he kills her.
PJ Souls.
Yeah. I heard a funny story about that. She snuck into a theater and she was sitting like in the second or the third row. There was a guy sitting in front of her, and her scene comes on where she asks Michael, who, you know, she thinks is her boyfriend, she goes, "You see something you like?" And one of the guys in the audience was like, "Hell yeah, I do." And she said she could not help but laugh about it because she took it as a compliment.
Sure.
And rightfully so. She was also a very attractive woman.
Mm-hmm.
Again, women in the 80s. I don't know. 70s and 80s is just something.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% agree.
I got one for you.
Okay.
This one's probably one of my favorite. Though it's not just here's my body. This woman embraces her nudity. And I know I'm going to butcher her name. Linnea Quigley.
Yeah.
In The Return of the Living Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Strips down, bears it all, and is dancing, talking about how she fantasizes about being ripped apart, basically. And she sure enough gets her wish.
Sure.
Even as a zombie with the pale skin, still just, yeah, still does it for me.
I mean, she's one of those that's, she's definitely a woman that seemed comfortable in her skin.
Yes.
Because she has been, I mean, hell, that's one of many nude appearances she's had in horror films.
And, you know, maybe that's something to point out. Like, when you can tell that the performer is really comfortable doing something like that, it adds to the overall watchability of it.
Sure.
I mean, she kind of seemed like, when I watched the film, it just kind of seems like for a minute there, she decided just to get naked on set, and everybody's like, what the, you know, like, why are you doing this? And she's just like, whatever.
Like, here it is.
There's a part of it where you're just like, is she even, you know, is she even realizing that she's on camera still? That's definitely one though that I don't know. That whole scene is just memorable because it's not just it's not a sex scene. It's not just, oh, she was in the shower or something like that. It's almost like she's making a statement.
Hmm.
And they kind of were, because the group that that group of friends, they were like, you know, the bad boys and the bad girls. And, you know, they didn't wear what everybody else wore. They didn't act how everybody else acted. And it was sort of a statement she was making. I'm going to dance naked in the cemetery.
Yeah.
Like, that's, you're seeing it, and it's shocking. And she's a very pretty woman, and she seems like she'd be the kind of girl that would 1 second tell you that you're kind of cute and then cut you with a switchblade.
Sure.
And there's so much going on in it that you're just like, she's naked now. When did that happen?
I want to...
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to bounce off of what you were talking about her being comfortable in her skin and that being an important thing. I think that's a topic that's gotten a little bit of, I don't want to say a spotlight, but I've heard this argument here recently, and it seems to be targeted toward one actress. I don't know if you've heard any of this nonsense. Sydney Sweeney was apparently on Saturday Night Live here recently, and I guess because her cleavage was showing and she was looking kind of sexual, and a lot of the stuff, I guess jokes and whatever that were made in the show were about her being very attractive.
Mm-hmm.
People were just like, well, they're just sexualizing her. And I'm of the mindset that we are of a day and age where we understand that the word no can fly, especially with women. So if she didn't want to do it, she could have said no. In fact, I've actually heard that that's kind of part of the process over there at the show, is that the hosts have to kind of sign off on what they want to do. So if all these writers come up and said, hey, we want to talk about your tits, and she said no, then they have to trash it. But if she said, okay, then that's her business. That's her choice. So as you said, if they are comfortable with this, if this is something they were perfectly fine doing, then guess what? You don't get to come in and be like, well, how dare you? This is their choice, you know, their body, their choice. That's how it should be. So we're not saying or doing anything that I feel like we're not sitting there saying, hey, you know what I want to do to her. We're just admiring the view that we got from said horror movie and very much complimenting these women. So, understand that, like, if I found out that any of these women were being exploited in any way, which I will say, I have heard that story about Judy Aronson since you kind of brought that up, where not that she was exploited into being nude, not that I know of, but the fact that she had kind of been nude out in that lake or in that swimming pool or whatever in cold weather and pretty much damn near froze to death until Jason himself, Ted White, came out there and was like, hey, get her out of that boat. She's freezing to death, came to her rescue. And so shit like that, that's different. But if they were just like, no, you have to stay out here bare-ass naked for everybody to see, and it doesn't matter if you're cold. If it was something like that, sure, that's terrible. But to my understanding, she was okay with that. It was just the situation she was put in due to that is what kind of made that experience a little rough for her.
Yeah, and, I'll even say this about nudity in horror films. And Friday the 13th, I think, is perfect. Yes, there's a lot of nudity in the Friday the 13th franchise, but it's very real. And what I mean by that is it's a bunch of horned-up teenagers at a summer camp. It's shit that would really happen. They're going to go skinny dipping. They're going to have sex. There's going to be nudity. It's just like in, perfect example, involving Friday the 13th, the remake. There's a sex scene in the remake. And the whole time, this guy is talking about this girl. Now, in the beginning, there's a sex scene, but I'm talking later in the movie when they're at the cabin. The guy and the one girl, they're having sex. And he's talking about her breasts, and he's just talking about them. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't think somebody would do that.
Well,
you're putting too much focus on this. I mean, keep in mind too, this guy was an idiot, and she wasn't too bright either. So
that's what I was gonna say. He seemed kind of like a Chad.
True, but there's just realism to it, because that's really how these people would be, and it's not distasteful nudity either. It's not just nudity to have nudity.
Sure.
Because if they did Friday the 13th and there was no talk of kids running away to do bad things at the camp or things like that, I don't think, I'm not saying that people would be like, there were no tits in this movie, what the hell? There was no sex in this movie, what the hell? But I feel like people would be like, where did these people go to camp?
Yeah.
Because to all you listening out there who might have kids that go to camp that are teenagers, even if you're going to church camp, it's happening.
Yeah. Sorry.
Like, and I appreciate that.
While we're on that subject, she was actually someone I was going to bring up. Is Juliana, I don't know how to pronounce her last name. Gul. I don't know. She's hot. Like that scene. I remember, I think I went to the theaters to see this, and I was like, holy shit. Like,
oh, no, yeah, don't get me wrong. She is definitely, and we're talking about the remake, correct?
The scene that you just brought up. Like, the dude should need to shut his fucking mouth and put a sock in it. Yeah. And
you didn't even need him. They could have had a tasteful shower scene with her, and I'd have been like, cool.
But, yeah, she was like, whew. Oh, I mean.
Even the girl in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
She was very attractive too when they're telling their buddy to take a hike, to get lost. And to me that scene was enjoyable for that fact too. Like, that was real. Like, dude, get out of here! I'm trying to score. Go, fucking go.
Go away.
Like, yeah, like, it's wonderful. And I that whole scene is hilarious. She's flashing him and stuff while his buddy's talking to him, and he's getting all distracted. And again, there's a realism to it that is. I think that makes it tasteful and makes it real, because let's be honest, in real life, people have urges, people have sex probably when they shouldn't, people get naked when they probably shouldn't, things like skinny dipping happen, that stuff happens. You can't not have it in the movie. I mean, you can, but it sort of takes something away, I think. It's just like in Terrifier, in the Terrifier films. In the first film, you have the one nude scene, pretty girl and everything, but she gets sawn in half. So let's be real, like, that's just awful. The second Terrifier film, you have the shower scene. You really don't see, you basically just see the figure of the main character. And she's a very, and I know we've had this conversation about how there's something about her that's just, she has an energy to her that just makes you have an attraction. Yeah. And it's not like a sexual thing. It's just people are drawn to her. Very tasteful scene. We don't need to see full nudity, but the girl's taking a shower. It's a intimate moment where I feel like in that scene they are, to me, that scene is kind of showing that almost like a transformation in her. Like, she's transforming from this person who who has felt like a victim to empowering herself. It's almost like she's washing away the weakness that she's feeling, if that makes sense. And I feel like it is a visually stunning scene in that regard. And honestly, I wasn't even thinking like, oh man, I hope she turns so I can, I can get a full frontal view of her or anything like that. It was just I almost felt like she was this beautiful, broken person who deserved to be victorious.
Yeah.
And man, I just gave myself goosebumps on that one. It's not just tasteless nudity at that point. I feel like, some horror films are that. It's, let's see how many nude women we can put into this scene. Let's see how many sex scenes we can have, and then we'll sprinkle in some blood and guts.
Sure.
And that's a disconnect for me. It really is. If I want to see that much nudity, I have the internet. I can look up much more nudity than that.
This is true.
So, do you have another one? Because I have several that I can sort of bring up that I felt were like kind of a big deal.
Go ahead and toss in your next one.
I have one that really threw me off as a kid, and the reason I say it is because this woman in this scene really seemed like she was having a full-fledged, like, real orgasm in this film. And I thought it was, like, a bit much at the time. But at the same, again, a very attractive woman. And it's a movie that kind of gets shit on. It's a horror comedy. And it has, I'll give you another person that's in it, someone that I had a crush on. It had Jessica Alba in it. And that is Idle Hands.
Yeah.
I don't know. And the woman in it, her name is Kelly Monaco.
Mm-hmm.
In the car scene, the hand is rubbing on her. I think it's after it kills her boyfriend. She's got her eyes closed, and she's got the girls out, and the girls are in your face, tiggle, as they say. But the whole scene, I watched this when the hormones were still figuring out what they wanted to do. And I feel like when this film come out, there were a lot of boys. I was a boy when I watched this movie. There were a lot of boys that were at that turning point, and I don't think they knew how to comprehend this scene. Because she's getting give her an award for her performance, because she is acting the shit out of it with a puppet hand that is rubbing on her and everything else. I'm sure you've seen Idle Hands, so.
I know exactly the scene you're talking about, yeah.
But yeah, just, man.
It's a good one.
Kudos to her.
Mm-hmm.
I've got another one.
Okay.
This is a good one. One that really fucks with people. Leah Beldam in The Shining.
Oh, yeah.
Gets Jack Nicholson in. Very, very beautiful woman. And they use that, to me, it always represented that beauty's only skin deep.
Mm-hmm.
Because she lures him in, and when he's lured in and he thinks he's going to have some fun, the hag comes out, the leper with the rotted flesh and everything. I know, just thinking about it, just ugh. But it serves a purpose.
It does.
Again, it's, as an audience member watching that, you can appreciate how beautiful this woman is. And, I'm sure there were a lot of guys that went in and they were watching this scene and they were thinking, man, I wish I was Jack Nicholson right now.
Sure.
But then the transformation happens and it really takes you back. You're like, oh God, what is happening? And it, at least to me, that's what it represents, is beauty is only skin deep. Don't be fooled by the appearance.
Mm-hmm. Okay. This might be a cheat, but I think it's an easy recommendation. The entirety of Piranha 3D, because there's so much TNA in that movie. I think they honestly went in with that idea in mind of making a type of movie just like this, and they do not disappoint. Now, I've never seen the follow-up because I've never heard anything. Not that Piranha 3D was supposed to be like some great.
And the winner of the Academy Award is.
Exactly. So I know it wasn't anything, but I thought the first one was a lot of fun for what it was. Like, I went in with that mindset. It's ridiculous. It's crazy. TNA, blood spurting everywhere, and killer piranha. sign me up. And then TNA is just the icing on the cake, as I've said before. That's all this is for. If it's not there, it doesn't take away from the fun of the movie and the silliness of it, but you're just giving me something else to...
Yeah, it's the bonus prize.
Yeah, and there's so many nice little scenes, bonus prizes, like the skinny dipping scene, specifically. But
I have one.
Okay.
I have one. This might be considered a cheat, too. I'm just going to say it. The film series Species.
Yeah.
About the alien that wants to reproduce. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. Do yourself a favor, watch it, because it's actually a really good it's a really good film series. It's slept on.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a good plot. The effects, even for the time that it was released, are pretty good. And like you said, there's some icing on the cake when it comes to that. Let's see. I was trying to think.
Okay, here's one that I'm going to throw in because I found it on a list. And I guess technically, I don't think it's immediately something that people think of as a horror film, but it is, in a manner of speaking. And contains just one of the most gorgeous women I've ever laid eyes on. And she drops everything. Oh my God. It was like a sexual awakening for me all over again. Charlize Theron in The Devil's Advocate. My God, that woman. Even when she's trying not to be pretty, she's beautiful. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I know that people are like, look at her, monster. She's got all that makeup, but I can still see the good-looking woman behind all the makeup.
Yeah.
And in that movie, like I said, top to bottom, full, just body on display, and it's just so glorious. In fact, one of my favorite scenes with her in a movie doing nudity, and I know it's something simple, but again, this is all about the appreciation of the body. There's a movie she did with Tobey Maguire called The Cider House Rules. I don't know if you've ever seen that. And there was just a scene, and this is what you're talking about, the art part of it, okay? Understanding the need for the scene is her and him were kind of having this little secret affair or whatever, and she had come to visit him, and I guess they had just had sex or whatever, and she's just laying out on the bed, bare naked, and he's just looking at her, okay? Now, it's her chest is down, so it's just her backside, but they just pan over her body, top to bottom, and he's just sitting there staring at her, and he's talking about how he's just enamored. Like, look at this gorgeous, beautiful woman. And I'm just sitting there going, yeah, isn't she great?
And that's the thing. Like, there's nothing, to me, there's nothing over-sexualized about that. If she was spread eagle on the bed, full display for everything, yeah, I could see that being over-sexualized. But it's a simple, they pan over her, you appreciate every inch of the body. This delicate, sensual creature that is laying there. And even in The Devil's Advocate, I know you see more of her, but it is when the devil is trying to tempt Keanu Reeves with this beautiful creature. And it just, you're sitting there and you're watching it, and I didn't even think of it like more in a sexual nature, as far as like, I wasn't thinking of myself wanting to jump through the TV. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would have if I had the opportunity. But seeing him have to fight that, it adds to it. But then you think about things like, okay, so is the devil gonna watch them? Like, is he like the creepy uncle that's hiding in the closet watching? Like, it's thinking about weird shit like that. But no, I think movies exist that have nudity just to have nudity. A perfect example, there is a movie called Zombie Strippers. It has Robert Englund in it. He's a sleazy strip club owner who tells the women they're going to start doing face dances where they take their panties off, and real just sleazy guy. Jenna Jameson is one of the strippers in it.
Yeah.
And as funny as it sounds, there is another woman in it as well who's like one of the main strippers in this film. And I don't know if I feel like maybe this conversation has come up on the show, maybe before recording. I have always had an affinity for like the emo or the goth aesthetic, women with the dark hair and the dark lipstick and tattoos. It's just, I find it attractive. It's just something that I find attractive. And the other stripper in the movie she fits that aesthetic. She even has her nipples pierced in it. Mm-hmm. And something about getting bit by the zombie, it makes them more animalistic in the way that they dance, and it's really weird. But even seeing her dance in the movie, there was just this. And again, it's not like I'm sitting there like, oh, where's the lotion? Like, nothing weird like that. It was more just sitting there like, these women are absolutely beautiful.
And you know what? I even want to like jump off of that and just add to it. You know what's even better is when you have a partner, a spouse, who can do the same thing that you were doing, and you can have that conversation together. Because I feel like that my wife and I are comfortable enough in our marriage that if we see, male or female, doesn't matter, if they're it's normally a woman, because you tell me how much nudity percentage-wise there is in films, it's mainly women. But there's never a moment where something comes on screen, she's like, oh, here we go again, just close your eyes. That used to be a different relationship. Now it's just like, you can look at it, may not even say anything, but it can come up a time or two where it's just like, wow, those are some nice cans, and just like ditto. And we agree. And it's high five, and we're back to watching the movie. Nothing weird. We're just appreciating the body.
We watched a movie not too long ago, my wife and I. And I'm sitting there and full on. I think there was a sex scene that happened. And the actor, he was this real buff guy, in real good shape. And the woman, she was this dainty little thing, but she was very attractive. And it was actually really funny because my wife looks at me and she goes, that chick's kind of hot. And she even said, I bet she's like, that chick's kind of hot. I bet they're having fun. And I looked at my wife and I said, well, it's not like he can't throw her around the way she needs. And again, we kind of had like a, like you said, like a high five moment. And then like, I'm pointing out that this guy can throw this chick around, and my wife's pointing out that this chick is pretty.
Yeah.
And I mean, we even do that in public. Like we went to the store the other day, and there was this girl that walked by, and I kind of looked at my wife and I was like, that girl would be so much prettier if she would change her makeup a little. Like, I think she overdid it. And my wife looks at me and she goes, yeah, she looks like she's very attractive. She just put on a little too much makeup. Like, we had a full conversation. It was like a 2-minute conversation, nothing big. But I mean, that's the other thing, I feel like even couples, they learn a lot about each other through, and I know this sounds weird, but through nudity in film, through seeing things that happen, through being able to appreciate the body. I think it even helps people with their insecurities because, sure. and that's one thing too, I've noticed, there used to be this aesthetic that people strived for. And I'll say it now, you look at a magazine, or if you're someone who likes watching corn, as they call it, because nobody wants to say the real word.
Stupid.
They have a way that they convey things, and it makes a lot of people self-conscious. But to see, real people in films, and there's a lot of horror films where it's not some skinny, ditzy, thin little thing in the film. It's a actual woman. You have, scenes with certain guys in horror films where it doesn't look like they're part horse.
Yeah.
It makes the audience feel a little bit better about themselves, because it's like, at the end of the day, we're all just human. And especially over here, and I'm not trying to make this sound political, but the way that nudity is perceived here in America is vastly different than the way it is perceived in the rest of the world. The rest of the world, they see somebody naked and it's not instantly sexualized. It's just, it's the human body.
Yeah. Because
that's all it is. It's okay to be attracted to people. It's okay to like certain things. If you see someone that you find physically attractive, there's nothing wrong with appreciating the fact that they're attractive. That doesn't mean, for lack of a better way, I'm just going to put it bluntly, just because you find someone attractive, and just because you might see someone in a movie naked and you think that they have an attractive body, that does not mean you want to fuck them.
you can keep those thoughts to yourself if you do. That's
Yeah.
what you don't do. Don't go out and say that shit. But yeah, you just because you find someone attractive in any way, shape, or form, I genuinely wonder that, like because it always seems to come down to the male gaze, the male perspective. But we know women are just the same when it comes to attraction. That's something that I've learned the older I've gotten, is that women have these same thoughts and desires just the same as we do. It's just I guess since we're idiots, since just men are simple creatures, we seem to be the ones who act on them more. And not to say that all men are rapists, but that men do stupid shit. Okay,
I think we're more like cavemen when it comes to seeing attractive women. We don't act on it, but we're sitting there going, oh, poke, 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 poke.
Yeah,
like
and look,
that's our train of thought.
You don't even have to say anything. You can harbor these thoughts. I mean, saying it aloud, unless you're just paying a compliment, don't be creepy about it. Just, if somebody's showing off a picture or something like that, you can say, "Oh man, you're just looking gorgeous today," or "You're looking beautiful," or I don't know. I would hope that they don't come off creepy if you're complimenting someone, but some people take it, because I'll even say this, and I don't know if you see this shit on Twitter or Instagram or wherever, but I'll see women be posting a picture of a new outfit they got, or they're just looking cute today, posting selfie, whatever that stupid shit is, okay? And sure enough, you'll go into the comments and you'll just see these comments that just seem creepy. You know what I mean? Like the way it's worded, the way it's said.
I actually, there is a girl on TikTok who does dad jokes. She just does cheesy jokes and real innocent. She seems like she's a very down-to-earth girl, and you click on the comments and there's all kinds of just vulgarity toward this girl. And it's actually funny because, the comedian Tom Segura, Tom Segura and his wife were on their podcast talking about this girl. And he put it perfectly. He's like, you can just tell by watching her videos, by looking at her, that she is not that kind of person, like at all. Like she's just a down-to-earth person. She probably doesn't even swear. Like this vulgarity is nothing that she should be dealing with.
Sure.
But it happens. And, I'm a firm believer in the, you hear people go, well, she shouldn't have worn that. Your daughter shouldn't wear that clothing. No, your son should have standards.
Yeah.
Yes, your daughter. Yeah, and I do think there's a fine line sometimes. I think if you're going to church, you shouldn't be wearing, a dress that I can see every inch of your body underneath. Or if you're going to a school event, you shouldn't dress like a prostitute. Like, just saying.
Sure. You
should have respect for the people around you in that regard. But also, you should teach people to be decent to people. It's not something to be... It's the human body. It's something to be admired and appreciated. But you don't have to be vulgar about it. I'm gonna name two movies just real quick that I think really do well with having nudity in them. One movie is Suspiria. You have everything from young women in their like 20s to, there's even some women in their like 60s in the film that are nude. There's a big scene in the film where there's a lot of nudity, and they're all different shapes and sizes. There's this realism to it, and I can appreciate that because you're not just seeing, they didn't go into the movie going, we're going to just put all these young, gorgeous bodies on the camera for you all to see. We're going to have women of all shapes and sizes because women of all shapes and sizes are beautiful.
Yeah.
So I'll give that movie credit. And then another movie that I think kind of gets ignored, but is a phenomenal film, Midsommar.
Yeah.
There is a scene in the end of that film. It's a full-fledged sex scene. And there's, again, women of all ages, all shapes, all sizes. To me, the scene isn't over-sexualized. Yes, they're having sex in the scene, but the only reason that they're having sex in the scene is because they're trying to get the girl in the scene pregnant.
Right. And
to me, that takes away any kind of, like, people who would have impure thoughts about that. You understand the gravity of it. And then, the guy there's a movie that has nudity with a guy in it. And very real, I think. He wanders off. He has no clothes. They took his clothes. He's wandering around naked, freaking out. It's terrifying. And, you know, there's something in horror films, too, especially when something happens and someone is trying to escape and they are completely naked. Like, it adds to the fear for me, because your last line of defense, your clothes aren't going to defend you from a machete coming through your back or something like that, but it almost feels like your clothing is a last line of defense. So when you have nothing at all, no clothing or anything, there's something terrifying about that to me.
Yeah.
Honestly, one thing I would love to see in a horror film is if they were doing a sex scene and the guy had like gym shorts on, be running down the road completely naked other than his shoes. That would be kind of funny.
I think...
I don't know. It's a touchy thing.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, as I was saying to you off mic before we even started this, I was looking up, trying to make sure that we had some good lists to kind of pull from, maybe try to jog our memory of some things. And some person put Cannibal Holocaust on a movie you watch for the nudity, and I'm sitting here thinking, what the fuck are you talking about? That is not a movie that I would put in because I want to see some boobs. You know what I'm saying? That is a disturbing fucking movie with the nudity is far from the one thing that you want to see in that damn movie.
I've got one that I just saw on a list that really made me go, what the hell? Somebody put a Serbian film.
Yeah, what?
No.
What?
No.
There's some fucked up people in this world who...
And I can think of movies that you should not watch strictly for the nudity, but you should watch to understand the darker sides of life. And those movies are I Spit on Your Grave, Cannibal Holocaust. I would watch Cannibal Holocaust just to see it. I would never recommend for anybody to watch a Serbian film. I am not going to watch it. Last House on the Left is another one.
Yeah.
It focuses on something really just, terrible. And I think it is something important for people to watch, because I think it is a very real look into how bad the world can be. Mm-hmm. But if you're going into that film just because you want to see some nudity, I think you need to get some help and understand that you have the internet and you can look up things, because that is not the direction that I feel people should go. And, I know we could do a whole other show on this, but I guess this wouldn't be full-fledged nudity, but look at Alien and look at Ripley. She was basically in her underwear and a tank top through a decent chunk of that film. Mm. And again, I feel like that just adds to the whole aesthetic of you have the bare minimum in a survival situation, and it makes it frightening. Like I would be, I'm trying to think. There's a horror movie that I'm trying to think of. I think it involves people are out in like inclement weather, and they don't have warm clothing or anything. Like they're bare minimum. They're not naked, but they're like bare minimum.
Yeah.
That's another thing that's absolutely terrifying. Nude scenes in horror films tend to be looked at as something strictly sexual, but I think it also shows a level of innocence. As weird as that sounds, I think it shows a level of innocence and almost shows the characters to be naive in a way, especially like Friday the 13th. Like the kids might not be doing innocent things. They might be, skinny dipping and having sex and things like that. And that might not be considered innocent in a horror movie. But the thing is I don't know about you, but I'm not, if my guard is up at all, I'm not getting naked. It shows that they've let their guard down. Yeah. And they think everything is just fine. And people don't realize that when they're watching these scenes. All they're doing is thinking, oh, I get to see some nudity. But there's a much picture. If you knew there was a psychopath stalking you, if you knew there was a psychopath in the woods possibly stalking you, I don't think you're going to be trying to get lucky in a tent.
Sure.
So.
I don't know if I've got any more.
I don't have anything that's like really coming to mind. I had one that kind of made me chuckle because we were just talking about her. Barbara Crampton in Reanimator. Mm-hmm. That was kind of a big deal back when that happened.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't really have...
I'm sure we're missing tons, and people are
going
to be listening going, what about this one? What about that one? Well, guess what,
It's just
Ramblers? That's your job.
Yeah. It's just like I just saw one about there's two girls. There's a movie called Knock Knock with Keanu Reeves. Two like teenage girls come to his house and they have sex with him and then they torture him.
I don't think I've heard of that one.
Honestly, they're both younger. They're attractive women. I don't know if I would really, put it up there with the other ones that we've talked about. As far as, just seeing women who you can appreciate being put together in a well way, I guess. Yeah. That'd be about it, I would say. I've heard mixed reviews about the movie. But I mean, it's Keanu Reeves getting tortured. I mean, I instantly think of him as, John Wick now, and it would have ended much differently.
Sure.
But I don't have anything else either, so I think the Ramblers are going to have to help us on this one.
Yeah, so Ramblers, what's your favorite nude scenes in horror films? You can tag us on Twitter if you want to let us know, Threads, whatever those social media sites that you use out there. I'm sure that there are tons that we're not even thinking of, and when we read, oh yeah, that one, we're going to smack ourselves in the head and be like, why didn't you talk? Because we're not thinking about those, I mean, shit, I'm starting to think of others that, I guess after smacking myself in the head, it jarred a few. Because one or two are popping in my head right now. Shit. Anyway, hey, just tell us on the social media sites at Horror Ramblings. Send us an email if you've got a list. If you've got a link to something, like this got a great list. Because we found some, and like I said, some had some odd choices on there. Fucking,
yeah.
Like, put Lars Van Trier's Antichrist on there because I want to see some body double of William Dafoe's dick getting chopped off or whatever the fuck happens in that movie. I don't know. I've never seen it. I've just heard. Or smashed off. That's what it was. Anyway, hey, do you want to discuss horror with other people just like you? Well, then join our Facebook group or join us in Discord on our Ramblers Room. You can join us on Instagram if you want to see images. You can support the show over on Patreon, patreon.com/pencilpaperproductions. Leave a 5-star review on your favorite podcasting app. Tell your friends to do so as well. See if we posted up any questions and polls on Spotify. And finally, if you need a central hub for everything, pencilpaperproductions.com/horror-ramblings. Links are in the show notes down below.
And remember, guys, stay spooky and maybe naked from time to time out there.
This has been the Horror Ramblings podcast. Join us next time for even more.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.